Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Loadout, where we're on Tuesdays, you know it, we talk fighting games. Mike, how you doing, man?
Pretty good. Another week going by.
Another week gone by, but in particular over the weekend, if you're anything like me, you were trying to get into that beta over and over and over again, hitting the any button, right? It didn't happen. I think I got about 8 minutes. Played a little bit of Nash. Was surprised that the boom was a Hado motion.
I'm not playing him for that reason.
But what I did do was search ravenously on the internet for replays and also go on Twitch. And who other than Alex Valle did I find doing work? And I thought, let me reach out to that guy and ask him, can we use your replays on the show so we can talk about it? And then I thought, better yet, why don't you come on and talk to us yourself? So please welcome Alex Valle himself, Mr. Street Fighter. Thank you very much for joining us, in particular to talk about the beta, man.
Hey, no problem, guys. I know everybody's really excited about Street Fighter V, and as much as I am. So whatever knowledge I can instill in you guys, I'm all for it, man.
You know, I'm going to call you on that because during your stream last night where you were giving your thoughts, you said it used to be the whole save that shit for nationals, keep that tech for yourself. At what point did you, turn the corner on that?
See, I was one of the first to become buddies with like any region that played, because I was just like I was a kid, right? And then I'm traveling to different states, and everything is all about like, hey, don't let anybody know what we're doing, right? But eventually people find out. So as people figured it out, they had interesting ways to counter it. But I thought that process took too long. And not until like I met John, Choi, is where we started sharing so much info. And I'm like, this stuff needs to be out there much faster. So somewhere along the lines of early 2000s or late 90s is when I'm like, let's just go on with it.
The idea being, I can be so good here in this echo chamber, in this vacuum, but if I want to get better, I need to be challenged, right? I need my knowledge to be tested, and then as a result, we continue to grow and grow.
Sure. I mean, that has to happen. Knowledge is power, so got to do it.
So let's get into that Street Fighter V beta. You were literally putting in that lab work. The spoils of which are on your Level Up Series YouTube channel, which, by the way, I have that footage here. Like I was telling you, I cut it into your training footage, which we're rolling now.
Okay.
What were some of the things that you were looking for in the training room before you're going into matches?
When I first played Street Fighter V at like E3, I wanted to see how the game felt, right? And how does it play like, Street Fighter 4? Does it play like Alpha 2, Alpha 3, Super Turbo? Didn't really get that much time at E3 to explore, so I just went into it. When I touched training mode, I kind of carried that on. I'm like, all right, so let's see how the links work, right? Because I heard it's easy. So the links were pretty easy. You don't have to blink at all. You double tap. And I wanted to see if the Street Fighter 4 combos worked, which there's a little twist to what links and what does not link. So it's not like low short into low jab into sweep. That no longer works. There's different ways to link now, which is still easy, which is very easy, and it didn't really take up too much of my time to connect the dots here, because in Street Fighter 4 you had to learn not only what links into what, and you got to practice plinking, one frame links, all that jazz, and that takes so much time. So I just made sure that could I optimize damage as fast as I could, so by the time that I get into a game, I'll be okay. And that's what I did.
One of the things I like is that I kind of noticed that, like, as you said, the lights go into, lights into a special as opposed to light into heavy into a huge combo. It kind of reminds me of like KOF 98, where like you need the corner or a heavy move to do a bigger combo.
Yeah, that is the old school aspect of it. Like in Super Turbo, you can link shorts into like specials, right? But not really another normal attack. And meaties back then were very, very important, because that's where you can inflict a lot of damage, and you can also implement good tick strategies. But you were always scared to do them in Street Fighter 4 because people can just mash uppercut. There's no reversal timing. You just do it. And you're resorting to do jabs and shorts all the time because you want to bait those out. And
Alex, some of the things that were coming up that I think are interesting, right? And I've outed myself many times on this show as an 09er as far as the competitive scene. So some of these things, for somebody looking at it through those eyes, will say, "Hey, what the fuck? This is different. This is not the way it should be, right?" Whereas you have a lot more perspective. One of the things in particular that people have been saying and complaining about is the high damage. Man, like the damage is just so crazy in this game. What's going on with the damage? For me, I would think, oh, well, I mean, this is going to make faster rounds, right? Because it's like not one-touch kills, but if you get your opening, it's going to hurt the other guy. Explain to me, unpack why I'm looking at that the wrong way.
Okay, so visually, the damage is high, right? You see it, like you look at the life bar and you're like, damn, 4 to 5 hit combos into a super does like 50% off the bat, and they're very easy to land, right? Whereas in Street Fighter 4, you didn't really see that high damage unless you just got hit by a raw ultra or something, right? So you're like, something doesn't fly here. So damage output is really high. It must be really brain dead to do it. This is dumb. But nobody's actually doing the real comparison of the damage output. Only some have. So let's say, for example, Ryu's forward hard punch, crouching hard punch into fierce DP. That does anywhere like I think 280 or in Street Fighter 4 it does 318 points of damage. In Street Fighter 5 it does 286 points of damage. So I did the comparison here. So let's see, Street Fighter 4 did more damage there. Let's look at the infamous Daigo combo, right? The forward fierce, crouching fierce, medium DP, FADC, Ultra 1, right? That does 481 points of damage. That's with the full revenge meter, right? In Street Fighter 5, you do that same combo with the critical arts, it does 423 points of damage. So, if you guys want to make the comparison, that's what it's saying in training mode. Figuring that every, like, say, Ryu's life bar does like a 1,000 points of health life. Mm-hmm. That's what we're gauging it on. And visually, I can see where it might make people like have a knee-jerk reaction, because the life bars in Ultra Street Fighter 4 are kind of like tilted, right? It's not straight across. So the damage inflicted is reaching like a curve, and that may make it look visually smaller, versus in Street Fighter 5 is straight across. Mm-hmm. So those are other things to look at. It's a lot of knee-jerk reactions to high damage output, and I've been doing some testing just to see what the differences are in the damage, and it's like Street Fighter 4 still does more damage than Street Fighter 5, but with the ultras. So
I totally agree, and like I think people also aren't noting that like anti-airs seem better in Street Fighter 5, and there's no focus attack, so a lot of these high damage starters don't exist the same way. It's a lot more footsie based, and like if you land a forward fierce in Street Fighter 5, from what I've seen so far, you deserve a good chunk.
Yes, absolutely. If you land a forward fierce, come on, somebody's not paying attention, or you got a good ass read. That's just the way it is. It's kind of like no good player is gonna let you get in nobody's gonna let you jump in for free or clean. You're not gonna get in a jump combo unless like they read you really hard.
Speaking of FADCs, they're not in this game. You said last night on your stream that for instance, the Dragon Punch FADC made people lazy.
Yes.
What do you mean by that, Alex?
All right. People that started with Street Fighter 4, I'm always going to say Street Fighter 4 because a lot of you guys are used to it. I'm used to it, right? That's just the way we've been playing Street Fighter for the past 6+ years. And whenever we want a bailout program, we would DP FADC forward in the earlier versions of Street Fighter 4 and still get an attack. We will be able to backdash, and we'll be able to focus backdash away from defensive options. So FADC made us very complacent. It just did. And even though in Ultra Street Fighter 4 you have to backdash to make it somewhat safe, it still like didn't really make us think about blocking that long. We have meter, why not? It gets us out of the situation. We didn't have those options pre Street Fighter 4. Pre Street Fighter 4, you had until you had meter, then you had an alpha counter. All right, until you had meter, you had a super. You have to do a raw super, but all those things get severely punished. FADCs don't get punished, or a lot of them are safe, or some of them get slightly punished. So it's just made a lot of people lazy, and in regards to defense. And going into Street Fighter Five, defense is what's going to keep you alive now. And without those options, you're going to have to critically think about the hard DPs that you do, um, wake up supers and all that stuff, because the damage is coming back to you.
You say that defense is the name of the game now, but ironically, defense can also lose you the match, because in this game, if you block a lot, you take gray damage. So
Yes.
how does that change, the meta, so to speak, of the Street Fighter franchise?
Glad you brought that up, because that's something that it's one of those external, what I call mini games. All right. So in Alpha 3, what I wanted to learn, besides the typical, what damage, how much damage output can I do with the best character, I wanted to play with the guard break meter. I wanted to know what character broke your guard the fastest, right? Or like what normals and everything. And I found out Rolento was that character. And Rolento won me like a year's worth of tournaments because of it. So until people understood like how to just defend to lessen the guard break, which is another topic. Anyways, in Street Fighter 5, so once people see that, oh man, this guy's rushing me down, and like I'm blocking all his stuff, but it's doing great damage, maybe I'll, instead of blocking a lot, maybe I'll just put myself in a better spacing situation, right? And bait him out, so I can play better, or play a better neutral game all around, instead of like, okay, I'll block and I'll find my opportunity to backdash, crouch tech, or whatever SF4 trained me to do.
Mm-hmm.
So it makes you start to realize that this guy is coming at me. I need to think about how to stop him versus, all right, I'll just let him do his 3-hit whatever block string, and then I'm okay. I just don't want the community to feel complacent anymore in playing fighting games. You really need to think about where you stand at any given time. You don't want people to jump in. You don't want people to walk forward. You don't want people to walk. Well, actually, you do want people to walk back, but you need to go chase him. All right. So it's a lot more thought process now into the blocking game, more so than ever before.
Now, it's totally possible that a lot of these intricacies that have been found out in the beta won't make it into the final game. In fact, there's already 2 newer versions that I mean, at Evo you could play the version that had Ken in it. It's still interesting to see how the system is developing. What are the things that you think people who are only knowledgeable in Street Fighter 4 or have only played Street Fighter 4 are going to have a hard time grasping, other than these things that you're already mentioning? Because I heard you yesterday again saying you'll be interested to see how some of these new blood, highly offensive players will do in this game.
Yeah, I actually do have I do have faith in the new blood that's doing really well in Ultra Street Fighter 4, right? But now they'll learn how to defend themselves like a man. Okay? Because I'll use the Marvel analogy. Marvel, anybody can eventually land a TAC Infinite on you now. By now, whatever. They'll land it. They'll do like crazy damage on you, no problem, as long as they get that one touch. But the best Marvel players have the best defense. Mm-hmm. You cannot touch them. The Filipino champs, the Justin Wongs, the Chris G's, you will never touch them. You won't get that opportunity. The same way is in Street Fighter 5. You have like the LPNs and the Alex Myers. They're amazing at attacking and all these frame traps, all these crazy mix-ups, but their defense, not so much, because they have to rely on backdashing, focus. And I don't blame them too much, because they're learning how to defend now. They're just using the system, what's there. But in the reality of it, if you put them in like Super Turbo, you have them play CVS2, and you knock them down, think of like, it's going to be interesting. What do they react to now? Do they mash throw on wake up? Do they have a bad habit of backdashing? Do they just block too much? or what? So it's like I'm just that's the interesting part of how the new generation is going to adapt to defense in a game where the training wheels are off.
And that's an interesting question I have, which is you have Street Fighter 4 and a lot of the offense, as you said, is kind of autopilot. You have a lot of option selects. The defense leads into offense with DP, FADC, and such. Street Fighter 5 isn't coming out until next year. And the beta, as we saw, got canceled temporarily, and they're not going to be long. Is there any way you suggest current Street Fighter 4 players to prepare for not having as much hand-holding?
Oh, well, I always want to say try playing some of the older games like Super Turbo. At least that one as like the base, so you can see how important it is to have the chip lead. Like if you're a Ryu player, right? You throw a fireball, and you're playing versus a character that is struggling to get through the fireballs. They're gonna react to those fireballs much better than anybody else, like in the short amount of time. What that means is you're going to really feel the pain to be chipped in the beginning of the round, right? In today's game, if you get chipped, you don't care because you got like a million years to get that life back, right? That whole mindset is what needs to change. Like I always say, the training wheels come off because I want you to feel that if you are losing, you really need to not lose in the beginning of the game. A lot of people do that. A lot of people lose their health early in the game and they can never get it back. They're just dependent. They're too dependent on revenge meter, right? They're too dependent on like some kind of safety net, like a wake up FADC, and that's why I always tell them play Super Turbo. Even try Third Strike because the movement in there is a little bit similar. There is parries and you can guess wrong and lose a lot of damage. So some fundamentals there. CVS2 is great, and start there. Then after that, of course, play Street Fighter 4, and try to play more of a solid ground game. And you're limited to how much of a ground game you can play because of all the external forces, the focuses, the one EX meter that goes through projectiles, and it sways away from how Street Fighter was played before that era. So I know that the players will eventually adapt. I just don't want them to be discouraged of like, oh man, this game, anybody can knock me down and I die. No, it's because your defense sucks and you just need to think about how to really analyze a defensive situation now.
And right, and like beyond just the players, we also have the spectators. I know you mentioned that people have to know what's like worth being impressed by and what's worth learning. Like, for example, you see, any new person who walks by a fighting game is impressed by a 100-hit combo more than any solid fireball pattern. And even a little past that, a lot of new players see Daigo or Bonchan throw a million fireballs and they think, you just throw a million fireballs. How do you, without necessarily playing, without already being a good player, learn what is truly important? You mentioned walking forward to get someone to the corner. You've mentioned conditioning someone to throw tech. What is it that you can study and where is it that you can read to find out those kind of just subtle details? Because I remember for me, it took me like 2 or 3 years to stop walking backwards and jumping over every fireball.
Okay. Spectators, they're going to see is what's flashy and what's cool looking. Okay, so and everybody sees the game differently. Okay, so like sometimes the fireballs look cool for them. Sometimes the combos look really cool for them. And it's unfortunate that we kind of need some of those like flashy things to get the attention to watch what we're doing, and the ultras, of course. But as soon as they see that flash and they see everything else, I want them to see what what game plan is like Daigo eventually gonna eat up all of Bonchan's space by focusing forward and push him in the corner, and then Bonchan doesn't throw any more fireballs. Right? It's why he's scared. He got him scared. He got him knocked down. He's gonna set him up for a combo. So it kind of tells a story, and that's gonna take time. For me, like I really don't care too much about the flashy combos. I really don't, because flashy combos, you'll land them here and there when you get an opening, but that's not the normal Street Fighter match. The normal Street Fighter match is I'm doing 3, 4, 5 hit combos on you at most, right? I'm knocking you down here and there. I'm getting a few throws, chip, dead, and repeat. And it's a matter of like if the guy can adapt to it or not. Stick to the plan or adapt. I think the point where Street Fighter matches, the players start adapting to each other, where it goes back and forth, that is what everybody gets hyped for because you can see the meta changing, like in front of your eyes. Like, damn, you figured him out, and you see that, and you understand. If the audience understands that is happening, I think we all did our job.
All right, and then my last question I'm going to ask right now comes back to Street Fighter 4 actually, and it's your now infamous match with Bonchan. and this kind of comes to the idea of like balancing getting better as a player with like the reads kind of outside of the game. I noticed, and you brought it up later, when playing Bonchan, you didn't command grab very much, you didn't backbreaker his jump bracks very much, and in your offense, you were extremely conservative. And in the last round, this comes to fruition in this just total blow up where you catch his backdash, where you read his DP. Everything comes together at once, and it's like all this symphony of you making this read the entirety of the game. When does that like become your idea? When did you decide I'm going to condition him for this long rather than playing the standard Sagat versus Hugo matchup?
Now, before you answer that, let's point out that Alex Valle was using Hugo in this match. This was at EVO, if in case you missed it, which, I mean, we'd seen you use your Hugo before, but again, to the question.
Okay. I used Hugo the entire tournament at EVO. Now, if anybody's been following me, I've been using Hugo like just on my streams, playing on ranked, trying to get like the top 10 Hugo on each platform, PC, Xbox, and now PlayStation 4. So there's no surprise that I've been using Hugo a lot. Everybody knows me as a Ryu player. But I actually had to prepare for something like this. And once I found out that Bonchan was my first match if qualifying after pools, I had something for Sagat. I mean, I had a game plan already for that character. And I found Flo like walking around, and I know he's a Sagat player. And I'm like, hey Flo, do you want to play before quarterfinals start? And he goes, yeah, sure. And then PR Balrog goes, hey man, I got the setup. Let's go play. So let's go play. And then like we go to PR Balrog's room, and here's me and Flo. We're playing the Hugo Sagat matchup for like 2 hours straight. This was like around 4 p.m. because the quarterfinals start at like 6. All right, so Eduardo knocked out. He was too tired. He's all, I need my rest. Like he's just, I need my rest. So he bless his heart. He needed some rest, and me and Flo were going out. Now, mind you, Flo isn't like the best Sagat player, but like I mean, compared to Bonchan, but Flo is still really good. Okay, and all the practice that I needed was spacing. Right, I just needed to be sharp in spacing, and the defensive tendencies, and so. Every time I play Flo, the score was like between 4-2 me, 4-3 me, or like sometimes him 4-3. But I had it; it was locked. Like my spacing was right, and the things that Flo was doing on defense, he fell for a lot of my gimmicks. So, and I figure there's no way I'm going to use Ryu versus Bonchan because come on, in Japan, everybody knows how to fight Ryu. That's kind of like the black and white match. You know that match. Back of your hand. He plays Daigo and all the other top Ryus. So it's only logical for me to use Hugo. And so by the time 6 p.m. rolls up and I get to play that match, as you can see in that match, I didn't really do SPDs because I knew that's what everybody looks for. And I know Hugo, the way I play him, you don't really need to use SPDs as long as you can have the clap pressure. The clap pressure is really good. Meat squasher pressure. Standing fierce pressure as well to kind of like keep people in check. And as the match was going, every round was getting worse for Bonchan because his spacing was wrong. Mine was right. I kept pushing him to the corner. I had meter, and as Donkey said, like I didn't use it because I want him to get comfortable. It's all about conditioning. Street Fighter is about not showing all your cards yet. It's about conditioning a player to believe that that's all they have. And apply a little bit more to the meta as people figure it out so you don't get over adapted. All right. And by the first game went through, Bonchan just kind of like, and I saw in an interview, he's all, I didn't know the match went that fast. He put me in the corner, and as I knew it, I died. And by the second match came in, I was able to freestyle. I was able to do a meat squasher in the beginning of the round. I was able to do a lot more standing fierces. I connected more claps. I started to do more anti-airs, and then at the end of it, I set him up with the biggest gimmick of all that all Hugo players go after is the EX clap into dash forward nothing, wait for him to jump, ultra. So it's just that was textbook for me because I trained for it. I just knew that Bonchan wasn't sitting down next to like a top Hugo player for 2 hours, like I was. So it's not like he's not capable of doing it. It's just that he wasn't prepared for it, and that was the match.
Now, Alex, your average Evo attendee or people who have been following the scene for a long time will see that, and they'll get, that you were conditioning him and training him to do things that you wanted, and you got the payoff, and that's what we live for, right? But you've been hearing Capcom say a lot that this game needs to have, the Street Fighter V needs to have a more of a mass appeal. You yourself are saying, say goodbye to these flashy combos, focus on the neutral game. But is there a fear that it'll get watered down to the point where the fans, what I'm getting at is, we're an esports show. We're interested in the industry of esports. We're interested in seeing the scene grow. Mm-hmm. Do you water it down to the point where the fans are like, wait a second, this isn't as cool as I wanted to, and now all of a sudden I'm not as interested in the game? Whereas the diehards are like, this is the game I've been waiting for. You yourself have some very popular streams, and you do your Wednesday night fights and other tournaments. Are you concerned at all, right? That's the other side of the business and that you're tapped into.
Yeah, there's definitely concern for sure. And the last thing we want is our fighting games to become dull. Like, oh, I've seen that combo, everybody can do it. It's not that important. Where fighting games shine is how to land that combo, because in top players are not going to let you land anything nasty. They're not. That's their job. Their job is to prevent you from doing a lot of damage. To first and foremost, not to look like a fool. But then, of course, to beat you. And in Super Turbo, that game, you can die off of one bad fireball. You literally can. But that game still gets played today, and it has a lot of appreciation. I guess it doesn't really click with a lot of players today because the execution barrier is there. And that's why there's less players than audience. And now, since people can do all these things, they still have to worry about landing that hit. Will they be able to land that hit? Right? That's what's going to separate a good game from a bad game. Like some games that there's just too many easy options to land a big combo, and you feel like, I have to pick a character that keeps me away from all the madness. I don't know. It's just it's a different cup of tea for other people's different games, man. But I just think that we'll be fine because Capcom has learned from their past iterations of Street Fighter. It's not like they're gonna throw a game out there and be like, here you go, it's time for the hardcore audience, now deal with it. They're finding that middle ground. And talking to Peter, and we come from the same school, he knows that he has to let go of some of the I want you to work for it type ordeal, right? He's going to have to let some of that go for other people to enjoy the game. And Street Fighter 4 has done, I would say, a really, really good job at it, but there's some stuff that could be let go now. So, and I hope that's what's going to happen with Street Fighter 5.
Alex, are you going to change your Twitter handle to Alex Valle SF5?
No, because Street Fighter 4 was the game. Not only did I compete in it, but it was the first game that I started to run events with it. So if that's when my tournament organization career started, that's where it's gonna stay.
Alex, before we let you go, can you please tell us where we can find more, your YouTube channel, your Twitch channel, and some of those things you got going on, like Wednesday Night Fights?
Sure. You can reach me on Twitter at AlexValle SF4, as we just discussed. Facebook, Alex Valle SF. Wednesday Night Fights, tune in. It's season 3 is next week on August 5th. So we're gonna have some announcements in the following days about it. So for more information on that, just check out my Twitter. Of course, I post all the stuff for the Level Up Twitter, which is a Level Up series. That's it, guys.
Alex, thank you so much for joining us. We were really excited about the Street Fighter V beta, and who better to talk to us about it than you?
All right. Hey, no problem, man. Thank you guys so much for having me.
All right. We hope to see you again, man.
All right. Take care.
What do you think, man? What strikes me as interesting is this guy's been in the game for how long? And he's used so many iterations of, let's just say Ryu.
I mean, he really has, yeah.
Like, literally, I was scratching my head, shower thoughts. How many Hadoukens has this guy thrown in his career? How many times have he been in a situation where you have to make that play or you have to make... it's just like the encyclopedic knowledge, right? I have respect for that. I think that's cool.
No, it's really crazy. And I mean, sometimes I feel like I play like Guile and all these anime games and the Guile clones, and it's like this guy's been doing actually Ryu for longer than I've even been able to pick up a stick,
Exactly. Now, we're going to move on. We actually have a second interview for you today. This is a gentleman who is another competitor, has as well has a long history in the fighting game community. More recently, he as well has been developing his streaming game. We're talking about NYC Furby. You might know him as Saban. You might know him as Art. You might know him as Arturo. Exactly, that guy. And most recently, talking about stepping up the whole esports angle of things, Arturo was hired to stream the Red Bull Salty Sweet at Evo, which when it came out, that was a cool story to think that. It's indicative of how the world of esports is starting to infiltrate, and it's starting to become more professional, and big name sponsors are trying to get on the game. So I think we have him. I think he's there. Can you hear us, Art? Hey, Art. We're live here on the Loadout. We've been talking Street Fighter V beta, but now that you are on, we're very excited to talk about streaming the Red Bull Salty Sweet. Why don't we start there, man? How did that come about? How did you end up hired to be the streamer for that?
Oh, well, it's probably a couple of things. Well, first off, thanks for having me on Daily Dot, by the way. Appreciate
Absolutely.
it.
Thank you for coming on, man.
Yeah, no problem. Well, first off, it was probably a couple of things. So like, it's no secret that I've probably been streaming for about, I want to say, started in late 2011, and I've been gradually building my stream gear over time, upgrading little by little, streaming local events, being a side stream at like some major events, and eventually one of the ways that I started getting content was that I started doing salty sweets because number one, there's all this demand for after hours matches. After the tournament's done, people are salty, they're upset, they want to play for money and whatnot, etc. And I found it as a way to get content for myself and to make it really entertaining for the players, to have like a place to play and play money matches, and for the stream monsters to watch. Unfortunately, you don't stick a lot of salty sweets these days, since a lot of these are done in hotel rooms. And as you guys know, hotel rooms at tournaments tend to have bad internet, so you don't really have salty sweet streams like that anymore. But I purchased an unlimited 4G card with the equipment I had a couple of years back. Started streaming like a bunch of like salty sweets, and then it got to the point where like everybody started asking me to do salty sweets. Even last year at Evolution 2014, Twitch wanted me to do like an after party with them on Sunday of last year. So this year, I guess Red Bull had covered me originally during Northwest Major 7. I got flown out to that tournament by NeoGaf. I think I placed like 4th or 5th or something like that. And Red Bull had done an article about me, like about the topics that you're talking about now, like, streaming and playing and, tournament streams and after hour stuff and all that. So I guess like the Red Bull article is probably what really pushed it over the edge for them to contact me and say, hey, we want you to do an official salty sweet with us in Evo. What do you think?
What I find interesting, and we can take a quick step back just for anybody who's not familiar or who has missed all these streams, what the idea of the salty sweet, the idea that, I don't know, that seems a lot closer to the original arcade idea, right? Like the tournament is the tournament, but that my pride, I'm going to throw money down, this is on stream, I'm going to show you, like it seems to be a little more, dare I say primal? I'm not sure.
Yeah.
But what do you think the appeal of the salty sweet is? You say that there's a big appetite for that.
Yeah, it's mostly because like a lot of these tournaments these days are so huge, and it's a double elimination bracket. You're not going to get to play every player. Granted, like the strongest players tend to win, but like also there's luck involved at tournaments. Sometimes dream matches that people want to see don't get to happen. Sometimes people want to play for high stakes that isn't really possible, like at the tournament, for a whole host of reasons, whether it's like time or whatever. So that's where I think the demand for it really comes from. And I'm pretty familiar with that culture myself because I had played in a couple of Gutex's Salty Sweets back in the day. Like some of them were the matches of the year. I played Daigo in 2009 and 2010 twice in his Salty Sweets. And we had that up for like thousands of dollars or whatever. So I was already familiar with the culture and the concept behind it. Like people are hungry for dream matches, and people want that redemption. So
Exactly. Now, I mean, we're talking about these are businesses that have evolved, that have cropped up as a result of the growth of the FGC. They weren't always the case, but you see it more and more, and now it's impressive that even Red Bull's getting in on it. What is your take on basically the business side of where we are in the FGC as far as events like this? Because it's starting to look, I'm not going to say it wasn't legit before, but it's starting to be validated, I guess, by outside dollars. What's your take on the lucrative nature or lack thereof of these side projects that crop up around the FGC?
Well, yeah, I mean that's a pretty interesting question because when I think about because I've been okay. So to give you a history about myself, I've been playing Street Fighter since '87, since the first one came out, and I've been playing in the arcades since I was a little baby. I didn't start playing in tournaments until '98, so I would say like about like 17 years of tournaments.
Wow.
In time, yeah, it's crazy when I think about it. So in time, like definitely like a lot has changed. Like like when you think back to the earlier Evos and even before then, the precursors, the B tournaments, they used to be strictly like about the tournament itself. Like there weren't any hotel rooms. You were in an arcade. Like you paid your entry fee. Sometimes it wasn't even a venue fee because it was at an arcade. Which is very commonplace now for you to pay like a $50 venue fee and up for a tournament. But back then, those types of things didn't exist. And then there were the dark ages during the 2000s where things were kind of under the radar, like, YouTube wasn't around yet. And then, fast forward to today where it's like where now a lot of these events, they're more than just tournaments itself. Like, you start seeing vendors and stuff. You start seeing vendors and stuff and like exhibitions and like lectures and talks, everything. All these things have to do, they don't really have anything to do with the tournament per se, but that's part of the whole ecosystem of making money outside of the actual tournament itself. So with that comes increased production value. Like, you're starting to see real production crews at events more and more and more. It's starting to become more like a show and a convention and less so of a tournament. That being said, the tournament is still the core focus of it, but you're starting to see all these side things prop up like around tournaments, and like that's where the ecosystem comes from.
It's because, I'm sorry, people are hungry, man. Like it ends, you see that punch through the wall, you're all free now, and people are like, no, I need more, I want more, and then you're just waiting for the VODs, which I find interesting. But Donka, you had a question?
So you have these salty sweets, and they're getting more and more awesome, and you're having more and more of these dream matches, as you mentioned. How do you stop that from getting watered down? Like, there was a point in time where, Valle playing Daigo, as for an example, was like, not only once a year, but once, like, who knew, in a lifetime. Now it's like, then it was Evo. Now it's more and more tournaments of sponsored players get flown out. Is the Red Bull Salty Sweet, is making it super nice for the players an incentive to get them to come to it? Is it an incentive to make, like, these Salty Sweets more important than, say, just, like, any online exhibition you could set up?
No, well, yeah. Like, I mean, of course, the salty sweets are gonna mean more than online exhibitions because there's no lag there and it's face to face. So it's not quite the same. Like online fighting games, with the exception of very few games, like Killer Instinct and like Skullgirls and stuff like that, games that have rollback netcode, you don't quite get the same experience that you do offline, right? And when you say watered down, like, do you mean in terms of like production of whether like the commentary is esports or not, or in terms of just seeing high profile matches all the time? I'm not sure what you mean. Can you elaborate on that?
Sorry, could you repeat that? Like,
He's asking if it's. I mean, are you saying that since we're seeing these matches in the Salty Suite more often, that they're not as special? Is that what you're saying?
I'm wondering if that's going to begin to happen as, like, as I said, as online improves and as we get more and more of them. Mm-hmm. Like, what makes an Evo Salty Suite so much different necessarily than one at any of the other tournaments?
Because at Evo, because Evo is the event, and players who normally wouldn't come to other events come to Evo. It's like pretty much like the Super Bowl or like a championship finals. Like, people that would normally not be there are there. So when you originally said watered down, I thought you meant originally, like, because one of the things that people were worried about with Red Bull was that, like, Red Bull's backing like the Salty Suite or whatever, like, it's going to be too corporate. Like, they're not going to be able to, like, let it loose and be unleashed. But actually, not only did Red Bull give us the resources to run an effective Salty Suite with space, they were pretty much awesome, like, about what I could do. I straight up asked them, like, what can and what can't I do? Do I have to be esports? Or can I just, like, let it rip? And they were pretty much like hands off on it. Like, they came up to me and they're like, we think you guys are awesome. We just want to back you guys with our resources. You can basically do whatever you want. So that's what I thought you meant when you were talking about things being watered down. Like, are there like restrictions and whatnot? But no, like, I don't think there's really going to be restrictions, because it's still not to the point where every player is sponsored yet. Not everybody can get to every tournament. There's still so much more that you can do with these concept matches and Salty Suites imaginable. And it's not at the point, I don't think the fighting game community is at the point where people have to worry about things being watered down yet. I mean, just to give you an example myself, with my stream and my productions, for the most part, like, I'm pretty loose, and the commentary in my events isn't always esports, but I've been able to build it independent of sponsors for the most part, thanks to Team Spooky.
You did mention that there were some people concerned, right? And there was a big blow-up thread on, I think, r Smash Bros. About people being very offended, almost, that they didn't get in. They traveled all the way from their part of the country to this event. They planned their year around it. They get there, and, sorry, you can't come in. Your thoughts on people taking that the wrong way?
Yeah.
What was the reality?
I think people hugely took it the wrong way, because first off, okay, so I'll explain to you the guy's situation about the Red Bull thing, if it wasn't aware. So it was announced in advance that this place was going to be like at a penthouse suite outside of the Evo ballroom. It was pretty sick, 3,500 square feet. It was pretty huge. The problem was that Red Bull and myself and Gimmer, who was also doing the suite for Smash, we had got the word out so well that the hotel ended up deading that original penthouse suite, because 1,000 people called the hotel and they're trying to say, how can I get into the Red Bull Salty Suite? Yeah.
Can you imagine, dude? Like, the person on the phone, like, oh God, another one of these assholes calling me, right?
We blew it up. We blew it up too good. So basically, what ended up happening is Red Bull called me and they said, "Oh crap, guys, we have to switch venues like within like 4 hours." And I'm like, "Whoa, like, are you serious?" And they're like, "Yeah." So it was a situation where we got forced into a different venue within 5 hours, and all of our timetables were pushed back. I couldn't even be down for the tournament on Saturday. Like, this was the first Evo that I was only at Evo on Friday. I was not at Evo at all on Saturday and Sunday, because I was handling problems with a lot of these side streams and stuff. But the reality was, it was announced well in advance that it was a limited number of people. So we had limited capacity to begin with. And a lot of the people that I saw complaining that were on Reddit, that were on the Smash Brothers side, weren't really at the event. From a lot of the reactions that I got from people that were there, everybody was hyped. Everybody was happy. Like, people were calling grudge matches left and right. Street Fighter and Smash players were chilling. Scar actually played Jabali in a money match or something on my stream. The Smash players and the Street Fighter players are doing rap battles with each other. It was all good. Like, it just seems like a lot of the complaints were from people that weren't there. And keep in mind, I knew that was going to happen because it was going to be limited capacity. So, like, what can I do? What can we do in that situation?
You know,
We
it
got
also
forced into a smaller venue to begin with even less tickets. Of course, some people were going to be upset.
You know what was hilarious was that Z infiltration commentary back and forth. Where did infiltration come from? That guy is hysterical, man.
With the nature of the salty sweets, this is why I love salty sweets so much. Because like obviously at a tournament setting, especially like Evo with the sponsors and whatnot, you have to be extremely professional, and like everything has to be like in a set order, highly produced, like highly organized. With the salty sweets, it's very off the cuff. People can just come on and just pop shit and like do whatever. I mean, just to give you an idea, before infiltration got on the mic, freaking Akari from Japan and Pepe Day and Ryan Hart were all on the mic commentating matches in English and Japanese. Kevin from Singapore, who's part of Shen's crew, like came over and helped me out with the stream. We even had DJ iPad come on for guest commentary. So it was really, really random. And then even at the end of it, when they had Sherry, the last match was Sherry versus Harumi, we had Arsan from Topanga League. And like that is a paid show, by the way. The Topanga World League is actually a paid show. And he got on to do commentary for Sherry versus Harumi. And like that was random as hell, but like that's the beauty of salty sweets, man.
Salty sweets, where the magic happens.
Mm-hmm.
But we are at Evo at the moment, and or rather, what we're talking about here. And I did see you. You said you were only there on Friday. I did catch your match versus Fudo, Rock and Sim. At the end of the day, this is a question I like to ask people who, again, have that get into the business side of things. Do you call yourself a streamer or do you call yourself a competitor?
That's such like a loaded. Nah. Okay, so I guess it's like a two-part question. So originally, part of the reason why I even started streaming myself in the first place is because like I was thinking. Well, actually take it back a little bit further. So I had been a part of Team Spooky since actually 2007, 2006. It's almost been 10 years at this point. Spooky had contacted me during the dark days saying like, hey, like, I want to get into video production and like doing events and whatnot. Like, can you help me? So I'd always been friends with them for like a long time. He sponsored me to go to events. Fast forward to 2010, where like I had been in the scene forever and people only knew Vic as a multi-blood streamer. I had introduced him to a lot of the TOs at the time, and kind of the rest is history. In the process of that, I learned production myself. And I saw that when Street Fighter 4 came out, the whole esports thing was like starting to take off. And I was thinking, it's really nice that people are starting to get sponsored and everything, but I shouldn't wait for a golden parachute. I should try to do something myself, because at the end of the day, I want to go to more tournaments. So a lot of the streaming stuff that I've done, even though like I forego certain tournaments to actually broadcast, is because like I want to attend more tournaments. Because even to this day, I'm not sponsored by anybody. Everything is 100% funded by myself and like the Stream Monsters, of course. So in a sense, like I know in the future I'm going to be a streamer, but a lot of this is for me just so I can go to tournaments myself and play.
Mm-hmm.
And like that's pretty much what I did this year at Evo too. I pretty much gave up any production duties I had outside of the after parties and stuff in order to go compete in Street Fighter 4.
And you've done that. Although I do remember at ECT I saw you and I asked if we were going to play in Under Night and you said no, I got to run this stream.
I was so sad.
Do you ever feel like doing this production, despite the fact that it's gotten you to more tournaments, has hurt you as a player? Because you still have really strong results, but you do miss out on some of the practice.
Yeah, no. I mean, because eventually, like as you get older, like if you want to keep doing this thing, like you have to work in order to support your hobby. So like I guess as my form of working in a sense, and like trying to produce all these events. So basically, like what I try to do is now I already have the experience of playing for like 17 years in tournaments. So I mean, obviously, when a new game comes out, I still have to put in the time as everybody else. But what I try to do is I try to make the most of my practice time, and I try to play like elite players in long sessions, and like that's really what helps me keep afloat. So people think like I don't actually play, but no, like I do try to put in the time to stay relevant, which is probably why it was so shocking this year that I was placing at tournaments again, because people were like, "Hey, you're just a streamer," but no, like I actually do still play.
Was it shocking to the stream monsters, or was it shocking to you?
Oh, both, because my character, even if I'm a good player, it's really hard to win with Dalsum. So every time I start winning, I'm like, damn, like really?
What does that say about your opponents, right?
No. No, I mean, no. I mean, like, I've ended up beating a lot of good players, but, like, a lot of my opponents are strong, but, anybody can get figured out, including myself. Nobody's invincible.
Arturo, we are fans of setting records straight on this show, and I had talked to you prior to the show about is there competition amongst streamers? There was some beef that was, they added flame to it on Reddit, but Beefoteki he had beef with you.
Yeah.
Can you set that up and then resolve it for us?
Yeah, so
Put a nice bow on it for us.
okay, so a lot of the beef was stuff from like 2 years ago. If you saw that clip, a lot of the gripes that he had were about stuff that I said 2 years ago that I kind of apologized for. So the next day when I saw Beefoteki, I confronted him one-on-one and I told him what it was. And he was like, "Oh man, I shouldn't have said that." And he apologized to me. He apologized to me straight up, face to face. We went on the stream. We had a talk about it. The monsters were there looking for drama, but there wasn't really any drama there. That being said, there is competition and there isn't, and I'll elaborate on that. There's competition in the sense that with the nature of Twitch, it's always about like who's the best, who's number one, right? Who's number one streamer. But in actuality, you don't really need to be number one to be successful. You can definitely carve out a niche for yourself. A lot of the other streamers in the FGC, they're in regions that I wouldn't even be able to get to, and I'm glad that there's other streamers in other regions. I'll give you an example of some other great streamers that I think are great. Panda X Gaming, who covers a lot of the southeast.
Sure, friend of the show,
region.
Friend of ours.
He's amazing. Yep. Funky P as well. He's also like another amazing streamer that is based out of Atlanta. 645, who is based out of South Carolina, I believe. He definitely covers his own local scene. BG Callisto, who covers Chicago. I don't want to forget anybody. So many people that cover different regions. IE Battlegrounds, Armando, who covers the SoCal scene. Brett, aka Cosmodon from NorCal, who covers anime in NorCal. Logic Hole, who covers anime in Seattle, and so forth and so on. I mean, there's pretty much enough content for everybody in their respective regions to help it grow. So I don't really think it's a competition per se.
Now, but all these streamers that you mentioned, and I'm glad that you did. I think that's awesome that you actually took the time to list them. This is the community, right? These are community streamers doing community streams. But now you have, for instance, all the top 8s or finals of Street Fighter at majors. Those are handled by the official Capcom Fighter stream. You had the MKX ESL season, all done by ESL. Is it I'm going to put it to you. Are the days numbered for these community streamers, or is it go pro or go home?
Good question again. So in this case, in a lot of the esports situations, that you had mentioned, a lot of times when these corporate companies come and they do the events themselves, they often hire the pro streamers from the communities themselves to go do it. Mm-hmm. So I know for Capcom Fighters, a lot of the major FGC streamers are working in there on that. Same for ESL and whatnot. They have a crew. They have a crew as well. That being said, going forward, since production value is at a premium right now, and it's only going to be more and more important going forward. It's not so much. I don't think it's so much the pro streamers that should worry. I think it's going to be like the grassroots tournaments versus esports events. That's going to be the dynamic going forward because with these esports events, it's more than a tournament. It's a production and whatnot, and there's sponsors involved. And some of these majors are still grassroots. Now, granted, the exception to that, I would say the exceptions to those would be things like Combo Breaker and CEO. They try to be more than just a tournament. They have a lot of sponsors, even though they're grassroots, they have a lot of corporate backing behind it. So they're definitely ready for the storm that's coming. But next year, I think the esports versus grassroots events are going to be they're going to be clashing with each other a lot, especially with that DreamHack announcement in Austin in May.
Yep.
That's gonna be competing with a lot of tournaments.
We're very excited about that here, as you know, we cover esports. But you're right. I mean, that's bringing that clash to a head. Arturo, we thank you very much for giving us your time to come and talk to us about this topic. We hope you come out on top. We hope you're one of those guys that's still kicking for a long time to come,
Yeah,
both
I
on
think I'll still be
streams
around.
and as a competitor.
Thank you for having me.
What can you tell us? Where can we find your stuff? Team Spooky After Hours. Let's hear it.
Oh yeah, so you can find my stuff on Team Spooky After Hours on YouTube. That channel is FGC Sabin. You can give me a follow on Twitter at NYC Furby, and my Twitch channel is also NYC Furby. I'm going to be doing a $500 pot bonus tournament this weekend at Next Level. It's called Vortex to Victory. That's going to be Saturday, August 1st, and the winner of the tournament gets $500 with a payout to top 8. So, yeah, that's going to be on Saturday at 3 p.m. at twitch.tv/NYC Furby, Eastern Standard Time at NYC Next Level.
Again, thank you very much for joining us. You heard it here. Make sure to check out that stream. That sounds like a very exciting tournament. Art, thank you again, man.
Yep, thank you for having me.
So, again, man, I mean, what do you think? It's getting corporate, but I like that idea that, or I'm interested in to see how it rolls out. The corporate versus the grassroots.
I mean, I'm a guy who started out by playing in the depths of arcade UFOs Rambats, and now I'm sitting here, perhaps undeserved, and
get out of
day
here.
or not. So, I mean, I think there's definitely room for the people of the fighting game community, as he said, in the esports, and whether or not we get swallowed alive is up to us.
You're absolutely right. But speaking of community events, we have out of Dallas. Are you familiar with the Epic Gaming Lounge?
Indeed, I am. It's not only for fighting games, but it's a gaming kind of like cafe in Dallas. I've gone to play there for several of their tournaments. So yeah, it's an awesome place.
Well, speaking of their tournaments, they have a pretty badass one coming up. EGL Dallas 10K. This is run by Shane Capel. Have you met the guy? He reached out to me, and I had a chance to talk to him. Very solid guy. If you're interested in this tournament, the 10K is in there because there's 10K worth of prizes. But for you fighting game fans, in attendance, people that you'll get a chance to chuck some booms at: Justin Wong, K. Brad, Knuckle Do, Alucard, Adonis, Dominion, and Ally. I mean, Evo champs, Evo top 8 placers. Who wouldn't want a chance to compete with them?
Oh, yeah, and I know they got Smash, they got Street Fighter, they got Mortal Kombat, they got it all.
They got Call of Duty there as well, but you should definitely check them out at, you can go to, just go to Facebook and hit up EGL Dallas 10K. Those guys are doing cool stuff. It's awesome to see the Texas FGC putting on these cool events. And here's one coming right up. By the way, that's August 7th through the 9th. And El Danka, that does it for our Loadout fighting game show. Thank you very much for joining us. What'd you think, man, of Alex and Arturo?
It's nice seeing these guys come in front of me now in this show, because I remember coming up, I started out in Illinois, in high school, playing fighting games online, and these are the guys I saw in tournaments, and to see them coming out and talking to the community now, not just as players, not even just as content developers, but now as teachers, kind of shows like the evolution you can make as someone in this community, and how it's not just about playing games with your friends, it's not just about playing games for money, it's about like what it can make for you as a person.